Now, if you are an agency, how bad is it if a lead lands on your website looking for immediate help and there's nobody there to attend the chat? Or if they just need some quick information and don't know who else to ask. Maybe they want to fix something small like setting the language for their app, something that they don't really need a proper appointment or consultation for, and they need it right now. We have solved this. Give me the next 30 minutes and I'm going to show you how to build an AI chatbot that helps your website visitors on the spot. It gives them that extra helping hand for anything that falls between the cracks of your usual service catalogs or opening hours. This is how the chatbot looks like. It tries to help the visitor, giving away some free advice as a sign of goodwill, suggesting a consultation if it can't help any further. It is always available down here in this button on your website. This little gesture goes a long way and dramatically increases the chances that they book your services now or in the future. Let me give this a spin first so you can see what I mean, and then I'm going to show you how to build this for your own agency, step by step, beginner friendly, no code. And you'll find the complete AI agent as a download in the description below that you can use to get started right away. So let's say I'm asking it about a simple inquiry about Voiceflow and say, "Hi Georgia, can't figure out how to set the language for my Voiceflow project." And now it's trying to help me solve this issue. It goes with me through a few troubleshooting steps. So it tells me that typically the language settings are in the platform itself, and it tells me where I can find them. And then it tells me, okay, I can also help you with our consultancy services. Would you like more information on that? And let's say we want to stay with the troubleshooting, okay? Which is what I'm telling you. Let's stay with the troubleshooting for a second. And then it asks me, which issue am I encountering when trying to set the language? And I say, I can't set it for all the states altogether, so for the entire project. And now it tells me that the language settings are set at a project level in Voiceflow. And it tells me that I can't set the language settings for all the project at once, and so on and so forth. Now, let's say I want to proceed with booking a consulting session because I want to get more help, not only on that, but also on some other issues, which I'm telling it that I also have some more questions as well, and let's proceed. And now it tries to triage the issue to understand how urgent it is and how to classify it within the service catalog that it has access to inside of Airtable. So it asks me, is it urgent? And so I say, it's not urgent. It asks me, have I tried to solve this with somebody else? And I say, no, I haven't. And it tries to classify them within certain different areas. And I say, it's a technical implementation issue. And now it has looked into the internal project catalog and it has found that the website development project is the one that best fits with the description of this client. And it asks me if I want to proceed with this and if it sounds like a fit. And I say, yes, it sounds like a fit. And now it tries to find a suitable time for me. It asks me when is my availability and what time zone I am in first, because the clients might be all over the world. So it needs to know what time zone we are talking about. And I say I'm based in Western Australia. Now it has inferred the proper time zone, that is UTC +8, so it's 8 hours ahead of Greenwich Mean Time. And it asks me, when am I available for a consultation? When do I prefer it? And I can either choose a specific day this week or next week, and I say, let's do tomorrow afternoon. When's your availability? And it is lagging a little bit, so I will ask it again, have you found anything? Probably my internet connection isn't the best right now, so it has given me a few options. And which time is best for you? For tomorrow, September 17th in the afternoon, Western Australian time. And I say, let's go with 3 p.m. So now it's collecting my details, my full name, my email address, and so on. So I'm gonna quickly provide them. I provided it all my details, and now it can go on and proceed with the booking. It quickly repeats all the data to me, and now it tells me, okay, it is confirmed at this time, local time, and it also gives me a link to the booking. And now if I take a look at my calendar, I can see that tomorrow a booking was made at 3 p.m. Western Australian time, which in my local time zone over here is 10 a.m. I'm in Eastern European time, and it also shows the invitee time zone inside the invite so that the consultant knows where the person is located. And if I also look quickly in my backend, which is in Airtable. Here I have a bookings table, and here I can see that a booking was created together with the date and with a few notes that the LLM or the AI has saved, Voiceflow technical implementation issues. Now, if I go to the clients table, a new client has been created over here in the company that I just specified, and it is linked to the booking. Now, you can see that the booking has been created and I have nothing else to do. So I say, thanks for that. Bye. And now it has closed the chat. Everything is good. Now, in the next half an hour, I'm going to walk you exactly through how I built this agent. I used Voiceflow to build this agent, which is a conversational builder. So this is how the final agent looks like. You don't have to write anything down. I'm going to share the complete Voiceflow file in the link in the description below that you can download together with all the prompts for all of these states. The backend is built on Airtable, as I've showed you just now. So we will have 4 tables here. We'll have a client table, a services table. So this is the service catalog that your company will offer. Then the bookings. So basically everything that has been booked through the AI agent, and another table for conversations where everything will be stored that isn't a booking, like for example, feedback or notes for anybody and so on. I will show you how to integrate all of these tools together. This video is part of a series of 30 AI agents in 30 days, where every day I will put out a new AI agent in a different industry. So if you don't want to miss out on any of the new agents that I put out, feel free to subscribe to this channel and stay up to date. Now, in the next half an hour, I will walk you through the following steps. We just finished with the first step, which is the demo. We will then go through a high-level conversation design step inside Miro, which is this diagramming tool, where we will see high-level what will the steps of this AI agent be and why. Then we will see how we will integrate it inside of Airtable, which is a tool, as I said, like Google Sheets, but a bit more sophisticated. Once we've done that, we will create a chatbot in Voiceflow. So the plan that we've built in Miro, the high-level overview, will be translated into the actual tool. Once that's done, we will connect all the tools, which is Airtable, cal.com, which is a calendar scheduling tool that can show the available time slots in your calendar and book them. And then some integration with a time and date functionality so that the LLM, the AI, knows what day it is, so it doesn't hallucinate. Then we will test the chatbot and see how to make sure that it does what you want to do. And then finally, we will add it to your website so that it can help visitors right away, as we saw just now. And then we're done. Congratulations to your first AI agent in Voiceflow. Now let's dive straight in. The first thing that we will do is we will design the conversation of this AI chatbot. For this, I will use these boxes here of the flowchart in Miro, each one representing a stage in the conversation. So the first stage here that we will have is number 1, the greeting. So the AI agent will say something like, hey, welcome to Next Operations. My name is this and that. How can I help you? And then the second step will be to ask about the inquiry. So basically, what are you trying to achieve? How can we help you today? And then basically from here, we have various next stages that we have to take into consideration, right? So the first one would be the appointment booking, where the person wants to book an appointment to talk to us. The second step is if they want to inquire about a service, so service inquiry. The next step is, let's say they have an urgent question. So urgent, quick question, something that doesn't really need an appointment and something that we can just tell them right away for goodwill. Something like if they have a problem setting up Voiceflow or some little thing there, for example, setting the language or something like that. If it's in our knowledge base and if the AI agent can answer it, then it's okay if it just answers it. And then they will keep us in memory as having helped them. So probably they will come back again to book an appointment later on when they need it. And then the last thing is if they want to leave a note or feedback or something like this, or if their inquiry doesn't fit any of these, so that we can see that they have interacted with the chatbot and we can see this inside the CRM. So these are, broadly speaking, the 4 big areas that we want to cover with this chatbot. Now let's go through each of them and see how the conversation flow goes from each of them. So the first one, appointment booking. The first step of this would be to gather details about the appointment. So these are questions like, okay, what is your problem? How can we help you? What have you tried to solve it so far? And so on, so that we are best prepared when we go into the consultation call. The next step is the check calendar availability. So in this step, we will ask the potential client, okay, when are you free for a consultation? Then we will gather the contact details such as email, name, and so on, so that we can create a booking. And then finally, we will book the proper appointment. Now, some of these tools will need to be connected to the steps. Just change the color a little bit. So for this, we will need to have a calendar tool and a tool that serves as our CRM. So the database where all the clients will be saved in. So we will draw two databases here, one for the calendar and the other one for the CRM. So for the calendar, we will use cal.com, and for the CRM, we will use Airtable. Both will be connected via API, and we will need to connect the calendar with the check availability step, and we will call this get availability. So this means that data goes from the calendar into this step, so the AI agent knows when the person is available and when the consultant is available, and so the client can check against their calendar. And then in the book appointment step, the arrow goes the other way, which means that we will create an appointment here. And at the same time, the arrow goes out into the CRM as well. So an appointment is being created in both the calendar and the CRM. Once an appointment has been created in cal.com, it's automatically sent both to the client and the consultant, so both of them have it in their calendars. And there is one more thing we need to do here. The LLM doesn't know what time and day it is, so we need to add a function here that basically computes the time. So we call it current date and time. This is needed because the LLM must know how to query the calendar API. So if it doesn't know what time and date it is, it's difficult for it to query the API. There is also something else we need to do here. In the step where we gather the details about the appointment, we also need to inform the client about our services. So this will be a natural flow of the conversation. And in this case, we need the documents here, which is the knowledge base of our website stored in a RAG database. So we call this knowledge website pages, and the RAG database can be configured inside of Voiceflow that I will show you once we implement it over there. And we will call this step get service information. So we will feed the AI agent with all the content of our website so it knows exactly how to answer the questions of the client. Okay, now the appointment booking step is done. We continue with the next one, which is a service inquiry. So here the client just wants to know high-level information, like how do you guys can help me? Can I also book a quick one-off consultation, or do you just do complete projects and so on? Now this is connected to a second step where the actual questions will be answered. So answer questions. And we need this step because this is connected to the knowledge base as well. So the first step is just triaging it, and the next step is actually answering the questions. Now, once this step is done, we continue with the urgent quick question. So this is, for example, when they say, hey, how do I set the language in a tool or something? Now, this one is also connected with the knowledge base. We will call this step answer question. Now, it's possible and most likely that we cannot answer this question if it's something very specific, because the AI agent doesn't have access to the internet. So it cannot browse the internet for answers to specific questions. Neither can it browse the documentations of these tools. But this can be something that would be interesting to do in the future, where we could connect the AI agent with another tool like an internet tool, but this is outside of the scope. If the question is a bit more complicated, we would like the client to book a paid consultation with us so we can allocate all the resources we can to help them the best way we can. So this is like a nice to have where we say, okay, if we can help them with a nice giveaway, okay, we do this. If not, it's also fine. And then the last step, leave a note or feedback. This is a direct connection to the CRM, which we will call create note or feedback. So this is basically a step where anything else that can't be handled by these other steps falls into. Now, what we also want to do is at the end ask, okay, do you have any other questions? So basically all of these stages lead back to the inquiry step, like for example, like this. And then the answer question step also goes back to the first step or to the second step, but basically the first step that deals with triaging, and these two steps as well. And to make sure that it's not cluttering the diagram, we will color it a bit brighter. Plus, we'd also want to connect the other stages to the CRM and save the fact that the conversation has happened, just so that we know that there was an interaction and that we can get a summary of it and that we can improve our services later on down the line. So there was already a connection here for the feedback. So we will call these other ones as well save conversation from the question as well. And obviously the book appointment one is already connected into the database. So what do we see here? If we have a look at the database, it has 4 entry connections, which means that all of the steps that we are dealing with in this conversation flow end up with an entry inside of the database, so that at the end we can see everything that has happened. The calendar has just 1 entry from the book appointment step, which makes sense. And it also has 1 read connection where we check the calendar availability. And our agent looks pretty good. So what we will do next, we will go into Voiceflow, and we have just marked off this as done as the first design step. And now what we will do is we will go to Airtable and create the basis of the CRM system that is over here. And this will inform all the other data communications that will happen here. So Airtable is a tool that is similar to Google Sheets, where you have rows, columns, tables. This is how the dashboard looks like. If you don't have an account, you can sign in the beginning. After you've signed in, this is how it looks like. And what we are going to do now is we will click here, create, and then we will create a new app. Then we will see this. This is how the starter screen looks like for the new app. This is an AI agent that we will use in a second. And this is a name that we can name it. We will give it a name now. And then this is basically how it looks like. As I said, it is like Google Sheets. So we have columns, rows, we can type data here, for example, John Doe, and some note came yesterday, and so on and so forth. Now, this is just an example. We will now have to come up with a design for this database schema that saves the data of this conversation flow here. So we will have data such as the details about the appointment, so a summary or any notes, then the time when it was scheduled, any contact details of the client, such as email, name, and then finally the appointments. So most likely we will need 3 tables, with the last one, additional one, being about the kind of services that we offer. So this is not mapped here in Miro, but we will do this now. So we will get 1 arrow from Airtable to answer questions, which will be which we will call answer service questions. So they will be both based on the knowledge base inside of our RAC database, which is the pages inside our website, as well as the table of services that we will have inside of Airtable. And this arrow will also be connected to the gather details about the appointment arrow. Now, there's many arrows here. We can also spend some time and make them a bit tidier, but you get the point. So we call this get services, obviously from the database. And here as well, get services. Now, since we know that we need 3 tables, we can use this AI agent here from Airtable to give us a helping hand, because we don't want to configure this table by hand, one by one, adding all of these columns here, configuring them, and so on. And we also want a bit of inspiration to make sure that we don't forget about anything. So we will just prompt this now in the following way. We'll say creating a database schema for an agency CRM. Your role. So we'll say that the role is you're a proficient database designer, and then we say your task is you'll help me come up with a table schema that will store agency clients. And then I will also say that my situation. So I give a little bit of background about myself. I've got an AI agent consultancy where I build AI voice agents, and where my clients are from. And then it basically knows what it should do. And then output format. And I will say, don't build anything just now. I'll say first, let's brainstorm a proper database schema. You'll do so under my guidance. I'll say it should come up with a proper set of tables and with the proper columns for the data types. Then wait for my feedback, and we'll refine the schema together. So now I've sent out this prompt. Now it's thinking. And now what I expect it to do is to tell me about what proper columns and data types I should use for this task. Now, of course, we could have done this task in ChatGPT as well, but it's nice that Airtable has its own AI agent where I can just have all the prompt history and the conversation history, and I can just tell it what to do right away at the right moment. I don't have to copy paste stuff between ChatGPT and Airtable, but it could also be possible. So this is the answer that it has given. Now let's see if the schema makes sense. It's a 3-table schema. I told it that I just want 3 tables, which is fine for this exercise. So it's client name, company, email, and now I can interactively change this and refine it as I wish. And it looks good. So I'll say, okay, go ahead. and implement this database schema into this base. So now the agent functionality of the Airtable agent is being used, and it will actually create these tables with these columns inside of this base. So base means the actual set of sheets. It's like a Google sheet that has multiple tabs. So each tab here is a sheet, and the whole sheet is called a base. This is how Airtable calls it. Now it has just finished creating the tables. So we see here we have a clients table, we have a services table, and we have a bookings table, all of them with the proper columns in place. So now we can go ahead and delete this initial dummy table. And now we can also ask it to fill in some dummy data so that we can better visualize the CRM system. So I'll ask it, can you generate... So now it's generating some sample data. I told it should be plausible and it should be used for visualization purposes. So it should be basically imaginary in this sense. So it has output the data over here. But what I wanted to do is to insert the data into the table, which it seems to also do. So it also created all the records, which is very nice. So here we can see some sample clients with their status, some sample services. Okay, these haven't been inserted, so I'll have to prompt it to do so too. Very nice. So it has just finished generating the bookings and the service table sample data as well. So we can see here that it has a few duplicates, which we can delete, and also a few bookings, which basically we can just keep 2 of them just for sample purposes. Looks pretty good so far. So basically what happens here is that once we get into the stage where the client is asking for details, or for example, they are inquiring our services, we will connect the AI agent with this table. So this is the information that it will fetch it from, plus the data inside of our website, right? So depending on what kind of questions it asks. So for example, if they ask, okay, what industries do you serve? Then it will get the data from the website because it's broader information about the agency and so on. But when they ask then in detail, okay, what services do you offer, for example, for website development, then the AI agent will fetch the data from this system here. Then once the booking is being done, so here in this step, book appointment, then the AI agent will write the data inside of this bookings table. Plus, it will be connected with the calendar, so it sends an invite for both the consultant and the client, which we will do in a second. Now, Airtable is set up, so this step here is done, and we can now continue with creating the chatbot in Voiceflow. So this is basically implementing the points from point 2, so the conversation design. So we will basically implement the steps that we have here inside of Voiceflow and actually bringing them to life. So what is Voiceflow? Voiceflow is a tool that allows you to create conversational chatbots, both for voice and for text. This is how the front page looks like. You will click sign in. If you don't have an account, you will create one, and it will direct us to the dashboard. This is how the dashboard looks like. And then here we will click on projects on the left, and we will click up here to new project. We will give this project a name, and then we will create a new project clicking start from scratch. Now this is how the Voiceflow interface looks like. And you see it's very similar to the interface of Miro. So we have these building blocks over here. So it starts with a very simple agent that basically does not much, but we will change this. So it has a starting point, and then it has all of these nodes. And now these nodes can be of various types, and we can see here that we have different types of nodes: talk nodes, listen nodes, logic nodes, and so on. These come from a time where Voiceflow worked with NLP, natural language processing, where each of these steps had to be put in manually. But newly they introduced a new step called the AI agent step that does everything together. So it combines talking step, listening step, data capturing step, tool calling, function steps, all into one step. So it's very smart. It's like an LLM, and we will use this node to create the whole workflow. Now, coming back to our workflow in Miro, we will basically use one of these AI agent blocks for each one of these steps. Okay, so what we will do now is we will recreate all of these light gray boxes inside of Voiceflow with these steps here. So we will remove this one and we will pull in our first agent. And before this agent, we will have one step, which is the greeting step, which is a very simple talk step. So it's a message step. This is the only part where we will use a, let's say, message step. And here we will say the message. And we will prompt it with, "Hi, this is Georgia, your freshly baked AI agent at Next Operations. How can I assist you today?" So this is the very first message that will appear over here. So we will call this block greeting. And basically, this is the very first message that the client will see when they get on our website and when they open the agent. And we can see this here. We will click this test your agent button. So we can test this over here at any moment in time. And we see it also has a voice, so we can turn it off for a second. And basically nothing has happened here. So the chat has ended because I haven't connected the first block to anything else. So this is what I will have to do now. I will connect to the next blocks. So our first block will be called Ask About Inquiry. And here we will basically create a new agent. We will click here, create new agent. And this is where we will prompt it. So we will give this agent a name, and we will call it triage initial inquiry. And we will prompt it as we had it previously. So we said that there are 4 categories of inquiries, and I've just listed them here. So they are the 4 that we also have here in Miro. And I said that based on the classification of the inquiry, you'll proceed to the respective following step. And here I have these exit conditions that basically define when does the agent transition from this step to the next. So for each one of these 4, I will have a different exit condition. So I will just write them here again with a short description. So I say here, appointment booking, the client wants to book an appointment. So I've just copied all of them here. Then we will select the model. A good model is GPT 4.1 mini, which is a great balance between performance and price. And we will set the temperature to 0.1. These are some very good defaults, and we will disable the knowledge base for this step. So this is very nice. Now we will connect the greeting step with the inquiry, and this is the triage. Now each one of these 4 steps will get a different agent. So we will just pull 4 different agents here, recreating the structure that we had in Miro, and we will connect each step with a different agent, and we will configure each one separately. So this is how it looks like, and it looks very much like the structure that we had in Miro over here. So these are the 4 steps that we can basically now implement, and we will start with the first one with the appointment booking step. So here we will have 4 steps. So we will have 4 different agents, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now they aren't agents per se, they are basically prompts, but they are called agent steps here inside of Voiceflow. The first step in the appointment booking process is gathering the details about the appointment. So we will rename this step into A1, information gathering. And here we will have an AI agent that we will call information gathering AI agent. And we will prompt it your goal. You'll get the required information from the client in order to book an appointment, and then I specify how it should ask. You'll ask the client the following questions one by one, waiting for a response before asking the next question. Have a friendly and professional front desk tone. So the first question we want is details about the issue or why they want to book an appointment. So we say that we want to ask what the reason is that they have contacted us for an appointment, and to find out if it's an urgent issue and if it's anything broken in the client system and so on. And then we will ask if the client has tried to solve the issue themselves or if they tried contacting another agency. This helps us prepare for the call and see exactly what the problems are. And then finally, we'll say, make sure you understand. So for example, what kind of high-level problem this is. So the area of action. And then I conclude with, you'll figure out what kind of appointment this is and remember this information internally for the next step. This is later on when we will save this inside our CRM so that we can see before the meeting what this is about. Now we need an exit condition here, and the exit condition will be client provided information about the appointment. The client has provided information about the appointment successfully. Again, we choose the model here, and we want a low temperature, so it's not hallucinating. No knowledge base here yet. Actually, we need a knowledge base here, but we will configure it later on when we connect with tools. Now, the next step here is the availability check in the calendar. So we call this A2, calendar availability check. Now here we will connect with the calendar in a second, but first we will prompt it. So we will call this calendar check AI agent, and we say your goal. So now I added a few more things. So it's important in the beginning to first check the get date and time function. This is a function I will define in a second when we will connect the tools. This means that the LLM will get to know what the current date and time is, because LLMs don't know this. They live in a vacuum, so to speak, and they have outdated information, right? They have a cutoff time, so they don't know what the current date and time is unless we give them a tool that they can query. And then it will ask the client for their time zone, because the agent agency might have international clients, and the calendar tool works in international time, which is UTC time. So basically what I said is ask the client first what time zone they're in, and then you know this and keep it in mind whenever you connect to the calendar tool, such that you convert the date and time correspondingly. And then you will follow these steps that you need to find in order to walk in order to find the appropriate time. You'll ask the client when they're available for a consultation. Then you will check the consultant's calendar, return a list of available slots, let the client pick a slot, and if the client hasn't found a slot, start over. So we'll do this for as long as no time slot has been found, and if one has been found, proceed and confirm the time back to the client. Also make sure to spell out implicit date references such as tomorrow or Thursday to avoid any confusion. This is because sometimes LLMs might hallucinate and it's safer to do so. Now again, we pick the model, and then after that we set the exit condition in the same way. A suitable date and time has been found for the appointment. So this will be the exit condition, and this will be the condition for the next block, which in this sense is gather the contact details. So this is how we will call it. We'll say A3, gather contact details. By the way, these are the same names as in our Miro board that we saw just now. So this is again our Miro board, and we're here at step 3, check calendar availability, which we just passed, and we are now at A4, gather contact details. And now we go and continue with gather the contact details. Again, we will create a new agent, and we'll say contact details AI agent. So the whole purpose of this step is just to gather the details so that we get the logistics right. So I'm saying you'll gather the following contact details from the client to later save them into the CRM and book the appointment. So we'll say full name, email address, company they work with. We'll say full name, email address, company they work with. And before that, we say ask the client these details one by one, waiting for an answer before asking the following question. And now the exit condition will be all data collected successfully, all client details collected successfully. Okay, now that this is done, again, we collect the model, we select it, GPT-4.1 mini with a temperature of 0.1. Here we don't need a knowledge base. And then finally, we have step A4, book the appointment. So in this step, we'll do the same thing, and here we will connect with Cal and with the CRM later on. So your goal, you'll book the appointment into the calendar and the CRM. And I say you'll use the data you collected so far to fill in all the required fields. And once the appointment has been booked, confirm this to the client. And then you'll ask if there's anything else that they need help with and wait for the answer. And for this, we will have 2 exit conditions. One, if everything's all right, and one when they have something else to ask, where we will connect back to the beginning. So the first exit condition is there's nothing else the client needs help with. And the second condition is the client has another issue to discuss. So this is what we will do. Again, we will select the model and the temperature, and there is no knowledge base needed here. Okay, again, we connect the previous step with the current step. And now if there is nothing else that the client needs help with, we have this block, which we say, okay, goodbye, which will be a central block. So we will say that this block is goodbye and end. And here we will just drag a simple message. We don't need an agent for this because we will simply say, okay, goodbye, thanks a lot. And the message will be something like, thank you. It was nice talking to you. Have a great day. And we'll say, thank you, it was nice to talk, enjoy, and have a great rest of the day. And now here we can generate a few other variants, which is pretty nice. So it doesn't always say the same thing. And we save some credits for the LLM because these are pre-saved messages. So they doesn't have to generate it. So the LLM doesn't have to generate it every time, right? So here I can add a few other variants. And then after this, we have this step here over a logic called end, and we drag it in here. And then basically the agent ends it. So the way this works is that that we have this bubble, this box basically, and it goes from top to bottom. So it starts with this message and it prints one of these 3 messages, and then it goes to the next step where it ends the current state. Now in the AI agent blocks, of course, we could have added a few more text blocks and whatnot, but the point here is that because the AI agent block is so smart, it doesn't need any extra text blocks. So we are fine with just that one block that handles everything for us. And then we have the other exit condition. The client has another issue to discuss, and we will take this and reconnect it into the first, respectively the second step, which is ask about the inquiry. So basically what they need help with. So we can basically see here that in the back there is this arrow that connects back to this step, okay? But since the arrows aren't drawn very, very well, it's behind this other block, but it's fine, it's there, so it will work. And we will save this goodbye step somewhere here central so that we have an overview over it. We'll place it somewhere here so that other nodes can connect with it as well. All right, looks pretty good. So the appointment booking stage that we have over here in Miro is now correctly implemented inside of Voiceflow. We just need to connect them with the tools, which we do at the end. Now we're still in the conversation implementation mindset, and we will deal with the whole technical details and the backend fiddling in a second. But first, let's go to the next stage, which is B, the service inquiry, where the customer asks about different services that we have. So this is what we'll do here, and we will call this step B1, service and info inquiry. So again, we create a new agent and we call it service and info gathering inquiry agent. So here we will create an AI agent that will basically just write to the API and make a summary of what the client has asked over here. And we will just quickly use this AI agent step here just to summarize it and to write it into the database. And then we will connect this directly to the goodbye and end step, and we are good to go. All right, very well. So now the second step is also done, except for the connections to the tools, which we will do in a second. You'll see it's super easy. Now, looking at this graph, I see that the urgent quick question is very similar to the service inquiry and general question. So what I'm gonna do now is I will just merge these 2 nodes. So I will delete this one that was supposed to be the urgent question one. And since the service and info inquiry node already will have access to the knowledge base, I will just rename this and say service, info, and quick questions inquiries. Okay, very nice. And I will also name the agent like this. And I will quickly change the prompt. Let's see if it's still okay. I'll just add one more clause here. If they ask any quick consulting or advice question, feel free to answer it, but don't spill the beans. Okay, now this is done and we can connect them. So we can connect point 2 is already connected here, and point 3 is basically deleted, which was the old point 3. So in case they have any questions about our services, about our company, or any quick questions, it will go into this node here. And then the last step that we need to go through is step number D, leave a note or feedback. So this is maybe when they text us to say, hey, thanks a lot, or anything else that doesn't fall under the previous 2 points. Save the note to database once the client successfully provided their details. And then we have the exit condition, data was saved to the database successfully. And then we will just say goodbye and end the conversation. And then it's pretty good. Perfect. Now our AI agent looks pretty similar with the one that we had over here in Miro, which is pretty good. The only thing is that the urgent one was merged with the service inquiry one. So what we can do is we can just delete this urgent question one. Okay, so our diagram looks a bit simpler. And now we need to focus on these components over here, which are the API integrations with the knowledge base, the RAG, the current date and time, calendar, and Airtable. So quickly going back to where we are at right now, we have finished the creation of a chatbot, which is pretty good. We will test it in a second. Now we're about connecting the tools, Airtable, date and time, and so on. We need to set up the knowledge base and the cal.com integration. And then we also need this handy function over here. So let's first start with the knowledge base. In order to connect the knowledge base, Voiceflow has a very interesting feature here where we can connect the website here. So we click here on the left at knowledge base. There is no data source. Okay, add data source. And here we can add a sitemap. And here we will add the sitemap of our website. But we can just as well add files manually or add URLs one by one or plain text or connect with Zendesk or add other sources with the knowledge API. So in this case, I will use the sitemap. So the sitemap is the one for my website. Usually it's the URL of the website /sitemap.xml. So we'll just double check if this works, just navigating to that site, and it's looking good. Here we can choose a refresh rate. How often do we want it to refresh? Okay, let's just stick with the defaults for now. Depending how often you update your knowledge base, you could go with weekly or daily even, but this is up to you. Now the LLM chunking strategy. So how will the LLM, so to speak, break down the knowledge in your database? So what it does, it takes longer documents like a website and splits it in shorter parts like sections or subsections. But this is being done programmatically in the back. So here we can select various options like smart chunking, FAQ optimization, remove HTML and noise, and so on. So in this case, since I connected my sitemap, which will show Voiceflow all of my pages on my website, I will use this option, and you can also use various. So it's not just single select, it's multi-select. And since I want the AI agent to also briefly and quickly give answers, I will also check FAQ optimization. So it creates sample questions that each section could answer. The other ones don't really fit in my case, like smart chunking for having complex documents with varied topics. This could be, for example, interesting if you would build an internal knowledge chatbot for a law firm, for example, where you have lots of documents and where you want your in-house lawyers to be able to quickly sift through that information. All right, we're good. I click continue, and now it shows me all the pages in my website, which is very good. I say import 48 URLs. Okay, it tells me how many credits I will need, and this sounds good. Okay, it is still very manageable given that a standard subscription gives you 1,000 credits, which is good. So this one will take 8 credits, which is not much. So it's pretty good. Now we can see that each page is being chunked and processed. We can see it here. And once it's done, the status will be done. So some of them have already been done. And we can see that they're still processing. Once everything is done, then all the knowledge on my website is available inside the LLM, which we can see in a second when we will test it. So for example, details such as what type of industries we cover, how we help them, about us, about our team, our dedicated team page, all the questions inside the frequently asked questions, how we work, how our process is, like all these steps over here, they will all be saved inside of the knowledge base. And whenever a client asks specific questions about each of these topics, the LLM is able to pull it up. This is why it's processing it now, because the way it works is it takes a large document, breaks it down, and then searches within those document pieces because it's easier to retrieve them than all the documents as a whole. This is why we had to choose the chunking strategy. Now, while this is processing, let's continue with the next tool that we want to connect, because we also wanted to connect the database. So if we quickly have a look at our Miro diagram, the first node that needs the connection is the gather details about the appointment node that is also connected to the knowledge base. So we will go back and connect it here. We will click edit agent. So here we have connected the knowledge base, which is good. And here we will select the questions and a short prompt to tell it when to choose the knowledge base, right? So this is the generic prompt, search as an external knowledge base to retrieve information, supplementing and so on, which is good. Use the knowledge base when being asked about our company details and services. And we will leave the rest of the details as a default. Looks good. And we'll quickly specify this as well in the prompt. If the client needs any other information about the company, about our company and our services, use the knowledge base and the get services tool. Now we have to create a tool called get services now, which will connect to the Airtable services table. So we click on tools, on plus, then API call, new API tool. And here we will call this get services. Enter a description. So this is such that the AI knows when to call this tool. Gets information about the services provided by our company. And here we will have to insert the API connection string. So how do we get this? We need to go back to Airtable, and then here on the lower left, we have this question mark. We click it, and then we click API documentation. So we need to find the API connection string. And this document here is generated specifically for this database. We can see it here because it has all of our tables, the client, services, bookings, and so on. And now we go to the services table, we go to list records, and then here we will see, okay, it's a GET request, that's what we need. And we will need to copy this query string over here. So we will copy everything up until the question mark. And we come back to Voiceflow and paste it here. And then we need authentication headers, meaning only us can actually connect to this database. So this will be called authorization, and then it's called bearer, and then some API key. Okay, and now how do we get this API key? Again, we go back to Airtable, we go back to the lower left here, we click on our icon, and then we click on account. And inside the account, we can generate an API key. So we click on go to Developer Hub over here, and then we click on create token. And then we again click on create token. And here we set the name of the API key. We can say agent API key, and then we can add scopes. And we add data read and data write. This means that this API key can read and write data and records, and this is okay for now. Now, I won't create an API key because I already have one, and I will connect with this inside Voiceflow, but this is how you create one if you don't have. So I will just add my API key here. All good. And now I can test this connection. I click on run on the upper right here, and I can see that it has pulled the data from Airtable from the services. So I can see all the records here, right? So I can see the services. This is in JSON format. This is machine format, okay? But this is okay because it means that the connection is established, which is great. So now I have a connection here. So I have two connections. One is with the get services connection to Airtable, and the other one is the knowledge base that we have filled in earlier. This is great. Let's go to the next step that needs an API connection. Let's quickly have a look in Miro. The next one is the check calendar availability. So here I need two connections. One is with this function to get the current date and time, and the other connection is to the calendar.com, cal.com connection. Now you see why it is very practical to have such a diagram in Miro, because I can first brainstorm anything that goes into this AI agent, and then I can always come back to it and use it as a reference, which is super practical. Now let's go on and implement this function current date and time. Here, this is slightly technical, but bear with me. You will have access to this complete AI agent and the JSON file, the .vf Voiceflow file that you can upload directly into your Voiceflow dashboard and hit the ground running. It's down here in the description below. There's a link where you can download it, and you don't have to write any of this down. It's the complete Voiceflow file with all the prompts that you see over here, with all the connections and with all the code. But it's just this one little piece that will return the date and time. So we will again click here, edit agent, and then we will add another tool. And in this case, it's a function, okay? So this function is JavaScript. So let's call it get date and time, and the description gets the current date and time. This is important so that the LLM knows what it should do with the function and when it should add it. Now here we just need one simple thing. All of this we can delete. Again, you don't have to remember any of this. It's called output vars and then current date and time. And then it's this JavaScript function, okay? It's super easy. Don't think about it. All good. Now we can test it here again. We click run. And this is the result. It doesn't show anything, but we can see what has actually happened by clicking this button down here, download logs, which will give us a file that we'll save on our file system. And I've just opened this file, so we can see here that basically it was successful, and this is the output variables, and it will give me the time zone and the date and time in my current time zone, which is great. So now we know that this function works well. We go back to Voiceflow, everything looks good, and now we can close this. And I've already instructed the model over here to call the function get date and time to know which date is today before doing anything else. Great. And now the second function that we will need now is the calendar integration. So what is cal.com? Cal.com is a program that basically lets you create these appointment pages here, like this one, for example, that I have for a 30-minute meeting. You can configure any meeting you want here, and then your invitee can choose the time slot that they like. Now, there's a ton of other tools out there, but I found cal.com pretty cool. So you go to cal.com to create an account. By the way, you can use Calendly as well. You can directly integrate with Google Calendar if you like, but this is for the sake of this simple example. Go to cal.com API docs. This is what we search on Google. And then we have a link here to the documentation, and we need the part in the documentation that is called slots. So this is the time slots. And then we can quickly search here in the search bar, and we directly navigate to the connection slots. And this is what we need: get the available time slots for an event type. And here we see again a get request. This is the string that we need. We copy it and we go back to our Airtable. We create a new API call. By now you probably know the drill. We create a new API tool. We name it get calendar availability. Gets the calendar availability for the consultant. And here we have get, we paste this, and we need a few other things here. We need to also specify the day for which this availability should be fetched. So we do this by going back to the API, and here we have to specify a few other things, right? So first we have to specify the Cal API version. So this is all in order to make sure that everything works well. So we go to headers, we say Cal API version, and this is a value that needs to be set as in the documentation. So we go down and the documentation says that this is how it should look like. So we copy it. We have to set the query parameters over here. So we have to specify the event type ID, the start and end date, and the time zone. And you remember I've already prompted the LLM over here to use the time zone of or to ask for the time zone of the client. So this is because we need to specify it over here. Okay, so let's go step by step. Let's first take the event type ID. So we specify a question mark after the URL, and this is where we add the first parameter, event type ID. And we get this from the dashboard. So when we go up in the address bar, there is this string there, this number. So we copy this. This is the event type ID. And then every other parameter gets separated by an ampersand. And the next one is start. So this is the start date and time. We will just briefly type this, and then the end date and time is this, and then the time zone is this. Now these are placeholders that I will fill in a second. Let's quickly go back and see if everything's fine. So we have event type ID, we have start, and we have time zone, looking good. Now, how do I fill in these details? Well, via input variables, via this thing over here. And I can say, okay, the input variable is called start and end day. So this is the same day, and the description, again, important, so the LLM knows. And I'll say the day on which the client is available. And this will be filled in automatically by the LLM. And I will specify in ISO format. So this is an international format like year, day, year, month, day. Okay, and now since I've specified this input variable here, I can use it in the connection string via accolade, and then automatically, so I can type some here. But you see that as soon as I open the accolade, a menu opens with all the variables. Since I have just one, I'll pick it. Start and date, and the same with end. And then the time zone, I have to specify a variable as well. Time zone, the time zone that the client has said they're in. So I say if the client doesn't know their time zone or doesn't specify it, but instead specifies their location, infer the time zone from their geographical location. All right, now I will use this here as a variable, time zone. All right, and one more thing, I have to say that time zone is in international format, which again is the region/city, like region/city. Okay, very well. Let's test this API connection. Again, we click run, but now since we need variables over here, we have to specify them in the test because we're not mid-conversation now for the LLM to infer them. So let's say start and day, let's say it's September, let's say it's tomorrow, September 16. And the time zone is, let's say, Europe, Berlin. So I click run, and I can see that it has returned my availability for tomorrow in that time zone. Now I will quickly run it again with a completely different time zone. So the first hour is 6:30 in the morning. Now let's try, for example, America, New York. which should be sometime around 4 or 5 p.m. Well, I was wrong. It's the other way around. So in New York, it's earlier. So I got it confused. So basically it's 7 hours behind, which means if it's, or 6 hours behind, if it's 6:30 a.m. in Berlin, it's 0:30 a.m. So it's correct. So we can see that it works well. So the client will see the time according to their time zone, which is great. Now I can save this function, and I also need to specify that if the client doesn't know their time zone, it should infer it. So this is a detail that I will need prompted. So after that, you'll ask the client for their time zone or where they're located so that you know which time zone they're in. If the client doesn't know their time zone, ask for their city or closest largest city in their country and infer the time zone from that. Perfect. You'll use this time zone to query the calendar availability. All right, looks good. Now let's go back to Miro. Let's see what else we need to connect. So we have just connected the availability check in the calendar. Now we need to connect the appointment booking into two functions, the cal.com and the CRM Airtable. Let's go one by one. Let's first connect with cal.com. So again, we will go to our Voiceflow stage in book the appointment, edit agent. And we again will add API call, create API tool. And here we will call this create calendar booking. Creates a booking in the calendar for the specified date and time for the consult. Now here we will use a post URL. So this is the opposite of get. Get reads data, post writes data. Now again, we will consult the API documentation of cal.com. You see API documentations are the most important thing here when connecting AI agents to systems. They're basically the lifeblood. And it's always been like this when working with technical systems, only that in the past you had to connect these API connections via code, but now you connect them in no-code tools by typing them into forms. But at the end of the day, it's the exact same thing. You still have to go through endless documentation and find what you need. So in this sense, we will look for bookings. So let's just quickly search for it, bookings, and we see it here, get a booking, post a booking. So let's click on get a booking because where we have get a booking, close to it is also create a booking, which is right here. So now we again copy this connection string, copy, paste it over here. Again, we have to set the headers, Cal API version, and we will have to look which one it is because it's different from the one before. So we scroll down and we see it's this one. We paste it here. And then we have to make sure that we get this data body right. So let's copy this for a second and then we can adapt it inside the Voiceflow form. So here we choose raw body. So this basically means I will send it this piece of code, which is basically JSON format, but it's super easy to understand. It's like key and value separated by a colon and everything inside double quotes, right? So this is the start date, this is the name of and the details of the attendee, and then some other stuff. So most of it here we don't need. So we'll remove everything that we don't need. So we will need to keep the event type ID, which is the same number as before. This is the only thing that will be fixed. So I will just quickly copy it from my cal.com account. So I'll copy it here. The start date will be a variable. Okay, so just slowly, quickly mark it. The name, the email address, the time zone will be a variable. The phone number, well, we actually don't need the phone number because we don't ask for it. The language will be the standard language, English, which is all right, but you can set it in case your agency is somewhere else. And some costume fields we also don't need. Now let's see if there is a field for notes. Looking good. So now I just have to add variables for each of these fields. And you notice that I don't use them inside the connection string as I did earlier. I use them in JSON. This is just how it works. When you post something, you post it into like a separate part of the request than when you read something when you get it. It's just how the internet works. Now let's define all of these variables. Let's call them start and end. Now let's just call them start date and time. So this is the appointments start date and time in ISO format. And here it's important to specify it must be in UTC format. So make sure you convert it back from the client's time zone to UTC before calling the API. This is important because cal.com has its data coming in UTC, even though it says differently on the website, but I've tried it and you have to send it into UTC. Okay, then the name. the full name of the client, email, the client's email address, and the time zone, the client's time zone. All right, we're good. And now we can fill it in. We can say start date and time. The name is the name, email is the email, and the time zone is the time zone. Very good. Okay. Now what we can do is we can test this. Again, we click run. So we say start date and time. Let's say it's tomorrow, 16th of September. And the way it works is it's year dash month dash day, T, like capital T, and then the time. And let's book it for tomorrow. Let's quickly pull up the calendar. Let's say tomorrow 11 a.m. in my time zone, which is UTC +3. So it is tomorrow 8 a.m. So I will say, okay, this is 8 a.m. My name, my email address. By the way, Cal will send an invite to this email address. So this is the email address of client. Okay, here was client. And the time zone is Europe, Bucharest. All right, let's run it. And there it is. It says success. And let's look at the calendar. Looking good, 11 a.m. So what I said worked. It's unlike the API documentation of cal.com that says, even though if I specify the time zone, I can get away with sending the actual time via the API in that time zone. It's not the case. I have to always send the time to the cal.com API in the time zone, in the UTC time zone, which is the international time zone. So it's GMT basically. So, but in the summer, like GMT is British winter time. In the summer, it's British summertime and it's UTC +1. So UTC, so the Universal Coordinated Time doesn't have a winter or summer time. Now this looks good. I can save it like this. And I will briefly specify here that it should convert it to UTC time. So I'll say important. When you work with exact times. And I said you must always convert the time from the client's time zone to UTC before sending to the API, because the API tool always works, the calendar API tool always works in UTC time, which is great. So now I've created the calendar booking and now I need to create a CRM booking. Again, the same thing. I create a new API call, create new API tool, and I call this create appointment in CRM. Let's better say in the database. Now I will again have a post request similar as previously, and now we go to the Airtable API, have a look at how the connection string looks like. So here again, I'm in the Airtable database and I go to the bookings table. And in the bookings table, I go to create a record. But first I have to create a client record. So I first go to the client record, clients table, create records, and this is how it looks like. So I quickly copy this, go back, and before I forget it, so this will be saved automatically, I will have to specify this in the prompt. Steps: create the client in the CRM database first. Let's just say in the database. Second, create the appointment, create the booking in the calendar via the calendar tool. And the third, so here first, when I create the client, I must say take note of the ID of the client. Even better, we will go back. We need to track the ID of the client and the ID of the service that is being booked, because inside Airtable, I can link these records between each other. As you can see here, for example, in bookings, this isn't a string, this is a link to the actual record inside the clients table. So Airtable works very much like a CRM. So this is why Airtable needs the ID of the client inside the API connection, which is what I will do here. So when I create a client, which I will create now, I'll have to take note of that ID. So this is what we'll do now. So we call this create client in database. And here we use a post request. Again, the same thing. We'll go to the API documentation. And here we will go to the left to the clients table, create records. So I'll copy this. I'll paste it here. Again, the headers and the body will look like this. So I will copy it. I've pasted it here. I keep just one entry. And I see I need all of these variables. So I'll quickly add them. So name, the name of the client. So I quickly created the input variables here, name, email, and company. And I removed all the other ones that are necessary now. We can still modify them later on manually in the CRM, and added them over here. Now we'll quickly run a test here. So name, email, and the company. And let's see if it works. Quick arrow, fix the array. Quickly fixed it. Now it works, and we can see it returned this entry here. So if we look back, a new client has been created, which is perfect, which is over here. And if we go back, we can see that this ID has been returned. So this ID is important. This is why I instructed it here to take note of this ID. Take note of the ID of the client. Then it will create the booking in the calendar tool, and then it will create a booking in the database. After you've created the booking, so this will be step 4. So we say, when you create the booking in the database, make sure you link to the correct client ID. Then after you've created the booking in the database, come back to the client and modify its entry to it's all right, we don't have to come back here creating the booking. It's just enough to link it into the client record because Airtable automatically links it bidirectionally. So basically, if I have client here in the booking and I have the link to the client, when I go to the clients table, I automatically have its book here as well, which is very good. So we don't have to update the client again. And here one more thing, when it creates the booking in the database, we also want to link to the correct service ID. So if we look back, we see that we have these services over here, and we can connect with the services tool here as well. So API call get services. So we just link it here and we can say note in case you don't, or in case you haven't settled on a service by now. And I say that you can use the get services tool to see what services there are and remember their IDs in case you forgot. This is just internal and not client facing. All right, very good. So now we've connected also the bookings, the appointment book. If we have a look at our Miro board, the next thing that we have to connect here is the question answering node. So this node will have a connection from the knowledge base, the RAG, and the CRM database, where it basically will get the services. So it gets information from these two different sources. So let's get started. So we will click Edit Agent, and the knowledge base is activated here already. We have left it activated from the previous stage where we created all the nodes to begin with. And the last node that needs to be connected to the database is this node over here that saves a note to the database. So if the client wanted to leave a note, which comes from this stage after having collected the client details. So basically we added this. So we add one more API call, which is one that has already been created. So the create conversation in the database. And at the same time, we want to create a client in the database. So API call, create client in the database. So both of them have already been configured, which is very good. Just one more thing, we have to prompt them that they first have to create the client and then save the note. Steps to follow: create the client first, then create the conversation, and make sure you link the correct client entry. Now the thing is that this create client in the database API connection assumes that the name is just a string. So the conversation creation tool assumes that the client hasn't left a name. So we need to change that. So in order to save this, to fix this, we have to add a new API connection here. So the create conversation in database is no longer good because here we need to link to the ID of the client that has been just created. So then we create a new API call. First, we remove the create conversation in the database. Now create new call, create new tool. And here we say, we also call this create conversation in database with linked client. Creates a conversation in database linking to the client. This is the description. Here we post, we look at the documentation. Again, we copy the connection string. Again, we add the headers and we choose a raw body because we send a JSON object, and then we just copy this sample string here and we just keep the first one. And this is important here. So this is the person name, and here we will basically replace this. Their email address as well. We will have variables for it. Their company, the date is automatic because we have set the field to be so. The conversation summary, again, it will be a field. Notes as well, field, feedback as well. The source and status are also automatically set. Now let's add these variables. All right, everything added. Now let's quickly run it. Let's find a client ID from our Airtable. So let's just quickly expand one, and we can copy the ID from the address bar. So we'll just paste it here. We'll just send the email. Just seeing now that we don't need the email and all of these fields. And neither do we need the company because they are lookups inside the other tables. So for example, if I have Sarah Johnson here, then this email address is automatically pulled out of her record from here from the clients table. So we don't need that. We just need the new information that comes into the table, which is everything related to the conversation summary, notes, and feedback. And we need the client ID. So then we can remove these other fields, leaving just these. Okay, let's try again. Here's the record. And with the note saving path in our AI agent, the whole agent is done. We will quickly have a look at the Miro. So this was the last part that we just connected now to the Airtable database. And the next step now, if we look at our outline here, is once that we've just connected the tools, so we can strike this through. The next one is to test the chatbot. So how do we do this? We can see that here in Voiceflow, we have this initial start node and it has a play button. So if I click it, the whole pipeline starts. So let's click it and we can see that the interface changes. So I get two new windows, one to the lower left and one to the right. The one to the right is the chat window where I can chat with the agent just as if I would on my website. The one to the lower right shows me all the steps that are happening in this execution with the timestamp and the content that has been written either by the agent or by the user. So now I'll go ahead and I will just say that I've got a problem with my voice flow. I say, hi, I've got a problem with my voice flow. Don't know how to set the language. And then we can see that here on the left, the agent goes through the next step. We can also see that here, the next box has been highlighted, which is the next step in our conversation, the one where it tries to troubleshoot the problem first and tries to give some advice first. Also, we can see here the steps that the agent goes through. And then we can see here that the agent tries to give me advice. It says, okay, to set the language in Voiceflow, you go to the project settings and so on and so forth. If you need detailed step-by-step guidance, I recommend you book a consultation with our team. Would you like me to help with booking an appointment? And I'll say yes, proceed. So we see that the agent gives us a bit of information, but not everything. It nudges us to book a consultation with the team, which is what we want. And now it tries to troubleshoot the issue. So it asks me, okay, how urgent is this? Is anything broken? And I say, no, it's not urgent, but annoying. And now it will ask me a few more questions just as I prompted it. And it asks me if I've tried solving it so far. And I say, no, haven't done anything yet. Now it tries to go deeper, and it does this because it tries to see which one of our services best matches the problem, right? So if we quickly go back to Airtable here, these are all of our services, which the AI agent will look at in a second. So now we'll just say building a new chatbot for a client in another country. So now it understands why my problem is, and now it looks into the services. And if we look here on the left-hand side, we can see that it has actually called the API, the Get Services API, right? The API tool. And if we click it, we can see what has happened here. And basically, the API tool was called, status 200 means everything was all right. And now the AI agent has access to the knowledge of my services. And we can see this here, and it says, okay, based on your need, you need a chatbot for international chat. I recommend a website development service, okay? And while it's listed as website development, our team has expertise in chatbot development and so on and so forth. And it gives me a price and it asks me if I'm okay with continuing. And I say, yes, proceed. Okay, now it continues with looking for a suitable date and time. So we see that it has proceeded to the calendar check step, and it realized that it's Tuesday, September the 16th. And we can see it here as well, that the tool was called successfully, tool get a date and time called successfully. And up here, we can see that it has output the correct date and time, which is perfect. And now it asks me about the time zone that I'm in, because clients might be all over the world. So the LLM doesn't have a way to know the time zone of the client yet. Maybe they will implement a functionality at some point where the LLM can read the browser time zone, but so far we still have to do this manually. All right, let's say my time zone is, let's just say Australian Western time. And now the LLM knows that this is UTC plus 8, and now it will do all the calculation based on this, because this is how I prompted it, because the tools, the calendar tool and the booking tool, the CRM tool in Airtable, all work with UTC, which is Universal Coordinated Time. It's like GMT, it's in the universal time. And it understood that Australian Western time is UTC plus 8, so it's 8 hours ahead. And it asked me for a consultation, and I will quickly have a look at my calendar, and let's just say I want something Wednesday afternoon. All right, assuming that I'm in Australia, let's say Wednesday afternoon. Now it will check which time slots are available, which it does just now, and we can see it here in the calendar availability, which is nice. Now it gives me all the available time slots, and let's just say we go with 4:30 p.m. So this is basically 4:30 p.m. in the client's time, okay? Now a few more information, your name. Now it gets all the details to create the actual booking and the consultation. Then my email address. So it will also send me an invite to this email address so that both the client and the consultant have this. And lastly, the company you work with. I say Australian Mining Pioneers Limited. And now if we have a look here on the left-hand side, we can see that now it will start to actually book the consultation by calling the respective tools. Now it has just a little internet lag. I had to nudge it. My connection isn't so good right now, but we can see this over here that it has called all the functions successfully. So it has called the get services tool successfully. And since it had this little outage over here that we can see, so once a model has an outage, it has a fallback model that it will use. So in this case, it said, okay, OpenAI was on the fallback, then Anthropic, then OpenAI again. So my internet connection wasn't so good right now. So it probably lost a bit of context. So it asks me again what service I want, and I will just say we said we go with web development, right? So now it's back on track, but you get the point. And you see that it's also very robust in case the internet connection isn't good, in case any outages happen on their side. And we can see that it's been successful. So it says, okay, your appointment was booked. Is there anything I can help you with? And I say, no, thanks. And now it will close the chat. We can see that it went to the last state, goodbye and end, and it's all done. Now let's have a look into the booking CRM. We can go to the clients. We can see that a new client was created, which is myself over here with my company name, email address, and so on. And that I am linked to a booking number 24, which is this one. Now, if I click it, I will be able to open the booking. So I click here on the bookings tab, and here is the complete booking. And I can see that it was also booked into my calendar, right? Now, because right now, me as the consultant, I am based in Eastern European time that's UTC +3, right? It was smart enough to understand that in my time zone, it's 11:30 a.m. and in the Australian Western time zone, it is the time that the client requested, which is 4:30 p.m. So it takes into consideration these time zone shifts and differences, which is very nice because you don't have to think about all of these things as clients book your services around the world. And now before the call, I can come in here and I can see, okay, this person wants a website development, and then I can come into the meeting prepared. Now the testing is also done. And the last step that we have to do now is to embed this on our website. Now, in order to do this, we first have to publish the agent into production. So we first go here to the left into interfaces, and we will have to copy this code. But before we do this, we first want to set some details here. So for example, we can change the interface, if it's chat or voice, how the chat interface looks like, widget, popover, embed. So the widget looks like this, a popover would look like this. Embed would be, I can copy it into my own code. So we will go with widget now, position, text, appearance, and style. So here I can set the brand color. So in my case, it's this color over here. So you can see that this is my brand color. I can choose the logo. So you see that it nicely shows up here, and then I can give it a name as well. So I can say, this is the header. And I can call it Next Operations AI Assistant, or whatever you would want to call it in your agency. Then we can give it a description, and so on and so forth. We can also have a text here for the launch button down here. And we'll just say questions, ask our AI agent. So we can see that now the appearance has changed. So for example, here we have the new text that we just chose. And then when we click it, we have our logo, we have our company name, we have any subtitle that we want so that everything matches our brand. Now that these details are set, we can go over to the publish button, and over here we choose production. So this is needed in order for the AI agent to work on our website. We just leave everything as is. V1 sounds good. We click on publish. So now we can see that it's processing all of the details. And once that's done, we can copy the code and embed it onto our website. Okay, agent published. Now I go back to interfaces, and this is the code that I need over here, right? So I have to copy this into my website builder. So I'll just click on copy over here, and I use Framer, but it's similar for every other website builder, right? So let's assume this is your website. You click on settings, and then you go over here to your custom code section. And this is the part where you have all your tags, Google tags, analytics, and so on. And at the end of your body tag, you just replace this or paste it with your Voiceflow agent, right? Then you click save, and then you click publish, or depending how your website builder works, all of them are similar. It's updating. All right, now it has been updated. I can come to my website, refresh it, and I can see that here at the bottom right, this button has appeared, and this is the AI chatbot that we just had. And we see it's the greeting that we had. Hey, it's Georgia, your AI assistant. How can I help you? And we can go on and just continue. My AI agent is broken. I need a consultation. right? And then it's the exact same thing we saw previously. We see that it's the same brand colors that we had, that we set, which is pretty nice. And yeah, your clients can just take it from here and it's all good. And you can also monitor all the conversations, right? So you can go here to this transcripts and evals tab, and here you can see all of the transcripts that have happened. Now, there's many here now because we tested it so many times, but let's assume something breaks, some connection with Airtable doesn't work out, or you want to just follow each conversation step by step, as you can see here, and follow everything what has happened, or maybe something has broken and so on. Also for quality assurance, you can come here. This is a very good place. This is the dashboard that you have to monitor it. Great. Now that we have embedded it on our website as well, the AI agent is ready to go. Now you don't have to write any of this down. I'm sharing the complete AI agent file that you can import directly into Voiceflow down in the links in the description below. Everything you have to do is you just change your connections to the APIs, to Airtable, to cal.com and so on. This is the only thing that you have to do. So for example, over here, you just change these connection strings. And how do you import it? You go to your dashboard where you started out. You click on projects over here on the left-hand side. And then in the projects pane, there is this button over here, import. Now you click import, and then there's a possibility to drop this .vf file from your local file system. So this is the file I'm going to share with you. Take a look in the link in the description below. And this is part of a 30 AI agents in 30 days challenge, where every day I'm putting out one new AI agent in a different industry. So if you like this video and if you don't want to miss out on any of the new agents, make sure you click the subscribe link below. This way you'll get notified for each new agent that I put out in these 30 days challenge. And if you or anyone you know is looking for help with building such an agent for their own agency, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to help. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.